The Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast is sponsored by the Owner's Box Fantasy Sports app. Player statuses, live scores, stats, and news. The all-in-one fantasy sports app, ownersbox.com.
Hi, this is Greg Zahn, and you're listening to the Dear Mr. Fantasy Baseball podcast.
Craig, it's out of here. It's on a foul like the mouth of these guys when they're spilling their beer. All over studio gear, hear the fans cheer. Nominated sports podcast of the year. Oh wait, let's put this track on hold. Here comes the censor beat because these guys are some assholes. Who's running hot and cold? Check the show, even though Chris has the worst voice in radio. Podcast history, that's Joe the Sloth and Chris McBrien. Yeah, that's Dear Mr. Fantasy. Living the dream, and if there's Rocky Road ice cream and Baby Ruth, you can bet the Sloth is on the scene. The Fantasy League, great guests every week. They banter when they speak, inactive when they tweet, no doubt. That's 3 strikes, I'm out. That's why, no lies, y'all, I'm calling you out. Dear Mr. Fantasy, the Fantasy Baseball League. Dear Mr. Fantasy.
Hey, it's the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast. I'm Chris McBrien. We've got a huge show for you this week. Not only are we looking back at the first half and ahead at the rest of the season, we got 5 guests joining us tonight. Actually, I take that back. We only have 4 guests joining us tonight. And it's going to be an Uber podcast, for lack of a better term. We've got some big announcements to make right off the top. You know, I was going to wait until the show to announce this. But we got talking, and we felt it might be better if we just let everyone in on the news before the show itself. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're connected to the show via Twitter or Facebook, you likely already know this news. But if not, here it is. This week is going to be my final week hosting the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast. So family, work, life in general, they're all requiring my attention right now. It's just time for me to step away. I need a bit of a change. I just kind of think of it as like that old saying, I can't define art, but I know it when I see it. And for me, that's the way I kind of feel like I know it's time for me to step away from the show. It's been 4.5 great years. It's time for a change. I just wanted to, in just a minute, I'm going to bring in all the guys. I'm going to say thanks to each of them. But before I get to them, I just want to say thanks to you, the listeners, for taking the time to listen to the show. I can't thank you enough. I mean, just for taking the time to allow me to grow into this role here. It took a long time to kind of get really comfortable. I really appreciate you sticking with me right from the beginning, back when I had the worst voice in radio. And big thanks to all your support. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been doing this show. No two ways about it. And so each and every listener out there, this show is always been for you, so thanks. We're going to get into a few more details a bit later, but first I want to bring everybody on. Yancy, how's it going this week, my friend?
Just for the record, Chris, you still have the worst voice in radio. That much has not changed.
Thank you.
But like you, I'm a little bit under the weather right now. Like 2 hours ago, I didn't have a voice, so not my normal sultry bedroom voice that you guys are used to, but I'll hang in there for the show.
And Jason, how's everything going tonight?
Well, Chris, I think it's about time you be honest with the listeners of the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast, and I think you need to be honest about the reason why you're leaving after seeing Edison Volquez put up one of the worst dinklages in the history of Major League Baseball. There's really nowhere that this podcast could go but down. It's kind of like you're pulling a George Costanza. You're going out on top, baby. That's it.
I didn't even start him in DFS either, so the curse of Chris was not at play. I do want to say that. That's for sure. And Joseph, how's everything going, buddy?
It's going well. I'm just glad because I thought you were dying, and I was very concerned. But I'm glad you're not dying. Everyone's okay. You're fine.
I'm fine. A little under the weather, but no, I'm not dying.
Yeah. No, but I mean, look, I when you told me about what was going on, and it was time for you to step away. I think all of us were bummed out. I'm sure the listeners they clearly were, and they have gone on and had some really lovely things to say about you, believe it or not. And I think all of us are going to say some lovely things about you at some point in time, and we'll probably bash you at some point too because we love you so much. But you've done something absolutely fantastic, and it's something I think that deserves being commended, which is you have created something from nothing, and that is the hardest thing to do. It doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter what it is, to take something and really make it your own and go out there with no one behind you, nothing really happening, and then trying to just say, hey, I'm going to do this because I think I can do this, and I want to do it because it comes from the heart. And I think that's what's always connected with all of the listeners here at DMF, and I think that's why they appreciate you so much, and that's why I appreciate the show, and I know they've looked forward to it for every week, and over the off season they all look forward to you and this show coming into their earphones or their through their computer or whoever they listen to it, and it's been a staple of their lives for a couple years, and I want everybody to know that that's going to continue, and Chris has been gracious enough to let us continue this podcast. And Dan Strafford, who is on this call with us, Dan Strafford, myself, Jason, and Yancy are actually going to continue DMF. So it's not going away. For those of you who are concerned that the show is done, the show is not done. We're still going to hopefully have Chris on whenever he's available to come on and do a spot whenever he deems himself ready and has the time. But not only are we going to be here, but we're going to expand too. We're going to continue to do the baseball show, and we're going to also be adding football into the Dear Mr. Fantasy gallery of sports talk, and we're going to be doing that come August. So for all you football fans, it's going to be a separate show, and it's going to be now Dear Mr. Fantasy all year round. We also have some great stuff coming up with the Fantasy Network we're working on as well, where we might be in a position to take live calls and talk to you directly while we record. The show is going to change a little bit, but it's going to be the same kind of I believe we're going to try to keep the spirit of what Chris McBrien created here, and I think that we owe that to him in the very least. So I'm just thrilled to have been a part of this show for as long as I have, and I'm really honored that you're letting us kind of take it and continue to run with it in your honor, sir.
Well, let me say this. If you've enjoyed the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast so far, then please continue to show these guys your support. Like, download, listen, and be involved with them on Twitter, in the Facebook group, send in emails. The show's always been about interaction, so please, listeners, if you're listening to this show, keep it going for sure. No two ways about it. Before I bring in the guests, you three guys, you want to join me for a drink? Let's have a drink together. Sure. Shall we have a drink together?
Yes. Mine's already open. I didn't wait for you guys. Oh, and also, just so everybody knows, while Chris is drinking there,
yes, just have a nice
we are going to take next week off, and we're reassembling. We've got some things to do and some things to tweak and stuff like that, and the July 4th holiday. So in 2 weeks, we will be back and hopefully be able to continue to provide you with the same nonsense that you've grown so accustomed to over the last 4.5 years.
That is awesome. Now, I'm going to start to bring in our guests. Because like I said off the top, I wanted to make it a bit of an Uber podcast. I kind of let everybody know, this would be my last show. So I want to bring on some of my favorite people in the industry, some of my best friends. Right off the top, I wanted to have the Fantasy Doctor join us. We were having some technical problems. We weren't able to get him in on the call, unfortunately. But Doctor, you were always here, right here from pretty much right from the beginning. So big thanks to you, Doctor. I really appreciate all the fun we had together over the first part of the show's history, that's for sure. But now it's time to bring in all our guests. Let's start with the Welsh. The Welsh is, of course, you know him. It's Christopher Welsh, one half of the ITL podcast. I got to tell you what, I was a fan of the Welshes all the way back when he was on the Sports Porch podcast. I went on that show as a guest. I tried my best to help those guys out every chance I had, because I think I just saw something in those guys right from the get-go. And I will say this, Welsh, if there's anyone in this industry that just gets it, it is you. You've always understand the importance of strong content, and you understand the importance of audio quality. And you just get the fact that production values can make or break a show. Welsh, welcome to the program.
I am Huggenstein.
Nothing better than opening with an inside joke that nobody's going to get except everybody on this call.
Yeah, Chris can explain that later. We all are.
Go and check out at Dan Strafford on Twitter, and he tweeted a bit of a screenshot that was behind the scenes. You might be able to understand that inside joke.
All Huggensteins matter.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple things. I mean, I'm beyond honored to be able to be on this show because, when Scott and I first started years ago, we were doing kind of a goofy, weird comedy podcast, and Chris was nice enough to join us. He was the first person with like a real name and was really doing something, and came on and had a blast with us, hooked us up, and throughout there we built the connection, and it never stopped. And Chris and I both are media guys, and we have a value to humor and production. And yeah, I consider, like I told you, we're cut from the same mold for sure. And I'm good. I mean, everybody's sad here, but I'm beyond sad because I really look at you as one of the innovators of like the independent sports podcast, because we all have our, we grew up on ESPN or, some do CBS, whatever it is, the big guys. But, you definitely pushed through and you challenged all of the big guys all the time doing it independently. So I'm happy to be on here, and I'm happy that we are all Huggensteins.
There you go. And you mentioned Scott, of course, it's Bogman, the other half of ITL. Bogman, what can I say? The first person I think on the planet to do an impersonation of me was you. He did it so much on his podcast that people started calling him Mick Bogman. And again, Bogman, I've known you since Sports Porch. I've been a huge fan ever since. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. And of course, we all have to thank you here because you did pave the way, a lot like Chris said, for independent podcast. And the point does need to be made, driven home, that we did start with the big ones, but you were the first independent one that I really got behind. And I'm sad to see you go, but I mean, everybody understands that sometimes you just gotta go and do new stuff, or the old stuff needs attention. So we're gonna miss you.
I am going to miss you guys too. So Justin Mason, it will always be the guy that took me right down to the finals of the Mr. Podcast competition. And this guy wanted to win so bad. He wore a bikini while he was hula hooping and eating a pulled pork sandwich. And heck, my wife even voted for him to win. I always loved what you were doing over at Friends with Fantasy Benefits. I did my best to try and help you out whenever I could. And I got to tell you this, since you started writing for Fangraphs Rotographs, man, love those articles that you're writing. You are one smart guy, Justin. I appreciate you coming on.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's a real honor and humbling to be considered one of your friends in the industry.
Well, you certainly are one of the better ones. That's for sure. Oh, somebody is cracking open a drink. Congratulations.
I don't know who that would have been.
Oh, my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Fantasy Doctor. He was able to join us on the call. It's Huggenstein himself.
Back from the dead.
Doctor, hey, well, I should introduce you. I mean, you moved on to co-hosting the Fantasy Insiders podcast with Joel Hennard, but of course you got your start here. I actually gave him the nickname the Fantasy Doctor just as a joke, and it stuck. And it was so funny because some people even thought he was some sort of sports injury expert. He's not. And we would obviously rip on each other all the time when he was on the podcast. It was awesome. I got to tell you, Doctor, your gaffes have become legendary in these parts, and we totally love you for it. Thanks for everything over the years, and thanks for making it tonight.
Well, it took me a while. I had to rip the iPad away from the fingers of a now crying 4-year-old.
Mean guy. But at least you made it on the show, and that's really all that matters, right?
Yes.
Well, thanks again for being here, that's for sure. And Dan Strafford, I want to get to. Dan, I've always said that you have the greatest speaking voice of anyone I know, and you also have the worst singing voice of anyone I've ever met. But I got to tell you, the dulcet tones of your intonation and your delivery, it's always going to land you a job in the world of radio and podcasting. But I've got to say, of everyone that I know in this industry, you probably break my balls more than anyone else. Every time something happens, Dan's the first one to post somewhere. He'll say, it's Chris McBrien's fault, or blame Chris McBrien. He does it all the time, man, I tell you. But Dan, thanks a lot.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? There it is. I think that was an A flat.
It's definitely flat. That's
hi-oh. Chris, obviously known you for years, and what you've done here is awesome. I've always loved coming on. I loved being able to chat with you via Facebook and Twitter and all the different things about baseball at large. And glad you're going out the way you want to here. And as Joe said, look forward to you coming back sooner rather than later to continue to discuss fantasy baseball. This show, along with the ITL guys, all the other podcasts that are out there that are not from the big networks, really do what you've always said, and that keeps fantasy fun. Keep it fun, and you guys do a great job of that here on this show and throughout the other pods as well. So you'll be missed, that's for sure. But we hope to carry on as best in your name and your likeness, as you will now be the mascot moving forward. You guys are going to do a great job, no two ways about it, that's for sure. Now the thing is, this isn't just all about talking about me and this. We're done with that now. We've got a lot of fantasy baseball to get to. We're going to be covering lots of things from the first half. But before we get started, I just want to squeeze one more thing, and I did want to say this. Okay, I am leaving the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast, but I will say this. It's not the last time that you're going to hear from me on a podcast.
You're not dying?
No, I'm not dying, contrary to popular
belief. I got to get that wreath back.
And oh, no.
I just wasted a perfectly good beer toasting you. Holy crap.
Well, I'm leaving this podcast, but I'm currently developing a new podcast, but it's not fantasy baseball related at all. On the contrary, it's a podcast all about pop culture, movies, TVs, music, all that stuff I love chatting about all the time. It's called Pop Goes Your World. And here's the hook. There's two people on the show. One, and that's me, obviously. I'm going to be giving my take on pop culture as a Gen Xer. My love of 70s and 80s movies and TV shows and all that stuff. And on the other side of the coin is a millennial who loves his generation's pop culture and gives his take on things from that perspective. Now, the only thing is, if only I knew a millennial, especially one that was like smart and well-read and loves pop culture and even has some experience in podcasting. Yancy, I tell you what, if you know anyone that fits the bill, just let me know on that, okay?
I'll see what I can do, Chris.
Of course, it is you, Yancy.
I'll do it, Chris. I mean, you didn't really have to push that hard. Sorry.
Yancy is the only one I'd want to pair up with and do something like this. So make sure and watch out for me and Yancy on Pop Goes Your World. Like I said, it's in development. We're going to start pumping weekly episodes out pretty shortly. So if you like me and Yancy and you want to hear more from us, make sure you look out for Pop Goes Your World. You'll find us at popgoesyourworld.com. So it's just time for me to retire from fantasy baseball for a while and just try a couple of different things. Anyway, all that aside,
Chris, I got to say, first of all, I beat you last year after guaranteeing that I would win, and now you left the show, or you left that league, and now you're leaving the show. Like, if I'd known that you were going to take me winning the league last year so rough, I wouldn't have guaranteed the win, and then I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, well, congratulations on winning that. But, of course, I paid my penance for that, as everyone knows from the pictures that were posted. So don't worry about it. Anyway, like I said, we got lots of fantasy baseball to get to. Everybody, guys, are you ready to get started and talk fantasy baseball tonight?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
And I want it to not be so whiny.
I'm going to give you a really bad example because I do this a lot.
Here's something that really did make me cranky.
Okay, but in 1904, right?
I think you're right, Joe.
Oh, no, now we can't doctor the ball. It's ruining baseball.
Changing the game or blah, blah, blah.
I wouldn't roster two catchers in a 20-man league.
Oh,
stop whining and bitching.
we have C-Dicks here.
This podcast is seen more C-Dick than the...
Oh, wow.
All right, I tell you what, we're going to do something a little bit different this week. What I'd like to do is I'm going to throw it out to the panel, and I'm going to ask you guys to give me one player that's had a big first half that you think is going to regress in the second half. And then I'm going to be looking for one player that's had a big first half that you think is going to continue to produce. So, Joe, you're a resident expert around here. I'm going to go to you first. So give me a player that you think, give me one player that's had a big first half that you think is in for a big decline, and then a second player that's had a big first half that you think is going to continue.
Oh, well, look, as far as these guys, I think right now when you look at the top of the board and OPS and things like that, I don't see a whole lot of surprises personally, not from my point of view. But if I'm going to pick out one guy to me that I think is going to regress in the second half, it's Daniel Murphy. I just think that you've already seen him coming back down to earth. He was just on such a fantastic run early going, and I felt like, wow, how long is this guy going to hit 400 for? And they just kept happening. But I think what you've seen out of Daniel Murphy statistically, I mean, he's already got 12 home runs. That's usually what he outputs for an entire season. So he's just had a terrific first half. I would imagine, you could cut these numbers significantly in the second half, despite how good the Nationals are. And the other guy that I think has been the biggest surprise to most people, not necessarily me, has been Jackie Bradley Jr. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, he's going to regress. But I actually think Jackie Bradley Jr. is just going to keep on plugging away. I think this is just his game. He puts the ball in play. He has got a nice skill set. He's got a little bit of speed. He's got a little bit of pop in that bat. I think the 13 home runs are a little bit high. But I think it's definitely going to come around to 20 by the end of the season, and I think Jackie Bradley Jr. is actually going to be able to sustain.
Ooh, well, those are two good ones. Jason, why don't we head over to you next? So one guy that you think is going to regress in the second half, and another player that you think is going to maintain.
My player that's going to regress in the second half, I think, is Ben Zobrist. He has had a phenomenal first couple of months of the season. I mean, if you look at what he did alone in May, batted .406, .483 on base, 6 home runs. I'm not buying this for the rest of the year. He's already started to come down in June, hitting 189 for 189 in his last 21 games. On base down to 326. This is, we forget this guy is 36 years old. He's been around for a while, and unless he's taking the juice right now, I don't think that this is just like a revolutionary something that he just found a new swing. I think that he just had a hot 6 weeks, and you're seeing. I don't think that this is as bad as he's going to be, but at this point right now, if you're trying to sell him around your leagues, if you're going to get 80 cents on the dollar for him, I would take it because he's way outperformed what you wanted to, where he was drafted this year. So that's my guy who's going to regress. I think, ironically, the guy who is going to keep it going for the rest of the season, and I can't believe I'm saying this because he's been amazing so far this year, despite being 40 years old, is Big Papi. I mean, look at his numbers. If you look at his numbers, you look at his ratios, everything is in line, and he's actually gotten better with age. His strikeout rate, it's down to the lowest it's been in like 5 years. His walk great. He's walking at a higher percentage than he's been before. He's getting on base, the doubles, the steals. I mean, it's almost as if this guy got a strange package from somewhere in the Caribbean. But I'll leave that to Major League Baseball to decide. I think it's real. I think if you're a Red Sox fan, enjoy it while you can, because this guy's had an amazing career. And I'll tell you what, this is coming from a Yankees fan. I'm going to be sorry to see him go.
Okay, so that's a really interesting one. So what's your take on him, on the possibility that he might have a change of heart when it comes to retiring? Any chance that happens, you think, having such a great season?
I mean, anybody who knows if you're a competitor, if you're a professional athlete, that's always going to be a thought in your mind. Derek Jeter still talks about that. Peyton Manning is going to talk about it this year in football. John Elway still talks about that in football. Brett Favre still talks about it. If you've played at the highest competition and you've been a champion, of course that's going to be something that you reconsider. I guess that's something that, going forward, he's going to have to sit with his family and he's going to discuss. I almost feel that they've done such a hoopla with him so far about this being his final year and his farewell tour. It's going to be kind of hard to go back on it, but hey, I mean, I never stopped Brett Favre, so maybe we'll be seeing him take the field again next year.
Yeah, there you go. Justin Mason, friends with Fantasy Benefits. What's your take on this one? Guy who is going to regress in the second half, and another guy that you think is going to maintain it?
Yeah, I think the guy who's going to regress has got to be Mark Trumbo. In his career, he's hit about 20 points lower in batting average in the second half. He's off to just a torrid start. Already has, 22, 23 home runs already this year. 22 home runs is already set the same mark as he did for all of last season. He's walking a little bit less than he typically does. He's striking out more. He's got a BABIP that's really inflated. All these numbers are going to come crashing down a little bit, at least in the second half. So he's definitely a guy I would try to sell high on right now. As far as a guy who's been hot and is going to continue to do so, maybe this is a cop-out because he was so highly ranked coming into the season, but he's outperformed those projections, and Jose Altuve has just been the MVP of the American League, in my opinion. And I think it's going to continue. He may not hit for the same amount of power, but hopefully for us fantasy owners who drafted him for his speed, he'll add in a little bit more of that. But I don't see him slowing down at any point, especially now as the Astros start to get really hot.
All right, Bogman, what about you on this one? So who's going to regress and who's going to maintain?
My regressor, I have John Villar. He's been great so far this year, but the BABIP is 397. He has a career of 360, so it's a little high. I think he's really been helped by a good May. His May was 355, where he had 14 of stolen bases. April 236 with 5. June is 278 with 7. So I see him taking a dip in the second half. For the guy I think is playing well and I think it's going to stick is Francisco Lindor. The power is real. Ask the Welsh. He knows all about it. We have a bet on Francisco Lindor. And I don't think we see a sophomore slump from him with his batting average. His batting average and bombs have gone up each month of this season, so I think he's just going to get better and better.
All right, the Welsh, over to you. What's your take on this one?
Of course, he's taking a dig at me on the podcast. Of course. So,
love you too.
He does that.
My regression guy I'm going to go with is Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright right now got about a 6% difference if you're looking at in the zone, out of zone contact. And it just all comes down to his knuckleball. And we know how knuckleballers go. We've seen it with R.A. Dickey before, that when they're on, but when they're off, they're off. I just don't believe that he can maintain it. He's not giving up any homers right now. His last two full seasons, 12.2 and 16.4 home run to fly ball ratio. It's a 5 right now. So nobody is hitting his knuckleball. I just don't believe it. I don't believe he can maintain it. 15 games through the season, the numbers are astonishing. And if I had him, I would be trying to sell him at all cost because I think he can get a high return for him right now because people are buying in. 15 starts and he's doing what he's doing. There you go. But as soon as that knuckleball starts to straighten out, I don't know. But the guy I think that can continue having the hot start, and I feel almost gross saying this, is Ian Desmond. Ian Desmond is having an absolutely ridiculous first half. The stolen bases, the homers are all back. The average is back. And here's what's scarier about him. He's a second half player. Career, he's a 20-point higher batting average in his second half than his first half. So, I mean, what is he hitting right now? Like 320, something like that? Just hit a bomb yesterday or tonight. I don't see a reason. Now, he's obviously not going to be like a top 10 player the rest of the season. That would be silly. But, I mean, he's putting up numbers where it's going to be hard to say he's not going to finish as like a 25-25 player. The old good Ian Desmond as of from before. He's got a high BABIP in like the 390 range. But like I said, he's a second half player. I think it levels out a bit. and he could finish as a top 40 player still, and he's not going to qualify shortstop next year, but you get to reap it this year. So Desmond, I think, can continue.
Yeah, see, I like Ian Desmond because remember, if you think back to the beginning of the season, the first 2 weeks out of the gate, he was really slow. He looked really, really bad. So I was able to buy low on him in the Richard Mason Memorial League, and I got him for Scott Kazmir. And I've just been reaping the rewards of that ever since, especially being able to put him in the middle infield. Okay, Doctor, over to you. Who's one player that you think is going to regress in the second half and another one that's going to maintain his hot start?
Well, we've already talked about the one player that I've got that I think is going to regress. Unfortunately, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. So, Jason, I disagree with you wholeheartedly about David Ortiz. I think he's come out at 40 years of age. Some of the numbers, his walk rate is highest it's ever been. The K rate is 4% lower than it has been for his career. The power, I mean, he's on pace for almost. I mean, if he didn't have that 3-year stretch from 2004 to 2007. 2006 when he hit 41, 47, and 54 would be almost a career-type season where he hit 40 home runs again. And I just don't see that happening from Big Papi. I mean, if you listen to him in the media, I mean, the reports of him possibly coming back next year, he's all but shooting those dead, saying, you know what, I don't want to go through the grind again. And I agree with you, Jordan, Favre, Peyton this offseason in the NFL, play until you suck, but Big Papi has said, I just don't have it in me anymore. Like, what it takes him to get ready for a full season, he doesn't want to go through again. So knowing that, I don't think he's got it in him for the rest of the season. The Red Sox are going to be big-time buyers at the trade deadline, whether they look to add a guy, two guys that have been linked to Boston already is Edwin Encarnacion and Jose Bautista, who both profile better as a DH already. I just don't see him riding off into the sunset with a career year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to enjoy the fruits of his labor in the second half. As teams start giving him his fond farewell, he'll enjoy that a little too much. And I think the numbers are going to dip. I mean, he's not going to have a career year at 40 unless, he did get that mysterious package from the Caribbean, which is totally possible, I suppose. But even still, I just don't think he keeps it going.
Now, Doctor, serious package one time from the Caribbean. I heard that story once.
Yeah, now, Doctor,
I'm just surprised that you're really not a doctor. I mean, this is amazing. For all those medical exams that we practiced when I came up to visit.
Now, Doctor, I have a question for you on Papi here. Now, you mentioned some numbers on Papi, and you mentioned some narrative on him. But here's a question for you: what team does he play for?
Yes.
The Pawtucket Red Sox.
Oh, okay, there you go. Who's the guy? Who's the guy you think is going to regress in the second half? That's already been off to a hot start.
No, David Ortiz is going to regress in the second half. But don't worry, I'll do this right. So David Ortiz.
Sorry, who's going to continue? Who's your guy that's going to continue?
The guy that's going to continue for me is Chris Tillman. 10-1. The K's are up this year. The walks are a little bit down, but nothing that's outside of the realm of where did this come from. The ERA is. It's higher than it has been in the past, but it's a little bit below his career norm. He's also that perfect age at 28. So traditionally speaking, for hitters, the best years of their career come between 27 and 28, and for pitchers, it comes at 28 or 29. Chris Tillman happens to be 28, playing for the Orioles, but at least he was drafted by the Mariners, so it's not like it's a complete homegrown project for the Orioles. The Orioles have to find a pitching prospect at some point, develop him. At some point, hasn't been Jake Arrieta. It hasn't been Brian Mattis. They really haven't had a pitching prospect since Scott Erickson do what Chris Tillman has done. So, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. And this year, I think their nut is going to be Chris Tillman.
Okay, Dan, let's go over to you on this one. Who's your guy that you think is going to regress in the second half, and then who do you think is going to continue?
I think Starling Marte is going to come down to earth. I know his numbers are still going to finish really well, but 327, 50 points higher than his average from last year. His BABIP is about 60 points higher, or even 70 points higher than it was last year. His speed is great, and the stolen bases have been absolutely off the charts, but I just don't see him finishing above 300 as a hitter. I think he'll come back down to earth, and I think the entire Pirates outfield will regress a little bit this summer and stave off that hot. Apparently, I've been in Massachusetts too long. The hot
That's
start.
That's wicked awesome, Dad.
I'm gonna go park the car.
You and Mark Wahlberg are good friends now, are you?
We are. I dine at Wahlberg's often. We're buds. So I think Marte goes that way, but the guy I think is going to keep it up, and this is very off of my beaten path because I typically hate rookies and I stay away from them. But Corey Seager to me is the real deal, and he's shown throughout his entire career in the minor leagues that he is what they call a professional hitter. I don't know who they are, but I've heard them say it. And here I think he is just coming into his own at the major league level and will continue to perform for the Dodgers and will push 100 runs and probably finish near 25 home runs. I'd like to see 1 or 2 more stolen bases as the year goes on, but I think Seager will continue to perform at a high level.
Okay, all good ones all around. Justin is the one I'm going to agree with. Mark Trumbo, definitely a second half fade. And one guy I'm going to throw out there as a guy I think is going to maintain is Will Myers in San Diego. I like what I'm seeing out of him. So it's still only 25. He's bounced around a bit. I think he's really found a kind of a groove there in San Diego, and he's also added a bit of speed to his game. So I like him to maintain things for the second half. But I want to talk about a couple Cole players as well. A couple guys that, sort of underachieved in the first half. And I want you to throw out some names of guys that have done poorly in the first half, and this is especially good for like buy low candidates. So I want to know, first of all, one guy that's underachieved in the first half that you think is going to turn it around. So this is going to be your buy low guy, and another guy that has underachieved in the first half that's probably going to continue to be a bust. So Dan, why don't we start with you?
Sure. The guy that I'm buying is Michael Pineda. I know that some people like to point at Pineda's ERA and his counting stats, but look elsewhere. Look at his Ks per 9. Look at his walks being about his career average. His BABIP up at 359. He is doing everything but keep runners from scoring, and I think that will come back to be a good second half stat. His 5.51 ERA and then a 3.87 FIP and a 3.34 xFIP. That's such a wide gap. And I think you're going to get the better Pineda. I think the luck will come his way in the second half, and is somebody that I would love to buy on wherever I can. If anybody is in leagues with me that's listening, feel free to send a trade offer. The guy who I think is going to continue to struggle is Giancarlo Stanton. I think this is just a lost year for him. That K rate is absolutely insufferable, and I don't see it changing. Maybe the injury, maybe the being hit in the head last year caused some sort of problems beyond what we've seen. Yes, I know exit velocity is the new toy that everyone likes to use, but I just don't see Stanton rebounding to be that guy that people drafted in the first round.
Okay, I think those are good ones. Doctor, how about you on this one? One guy that you think is going to turn around, another guy that's going to continue to be a bust.
Well, it's funny that you bring up Stanton because he was the guy that I think is going to turn it around. I realize that the hit in the head is a big thing. I just think that someone's got to turn it around for the Marlins. I think it's got to be Stanton. I think the fact of the matter is he's got Barry Bonds there. I think that's going to help him more than hurt him. I agree with you. The K rate is way too high, but I think that's one of the reasons why I look for him to get a little better. I mean, the walk rate is actually right in line with his career rate, suggesting to me that he hasn't lost anything in the batting in his eye. The BABIP is right around 290, which is right where it was, last year before he got hit, but his average is, 45 points lower. So there's got to be a little bit of luck involved with that. In fact, I don't know what the problem is with Giancarlo Stanton. I think maybe he should go back to being called Mike Stanton, but I do think he turns it around in the second half because I think he's just been so bad for so long, but he's such a good player that I look for him to turn it around. And he's still capable, of going on one of those hot streaks and still finishing with, 30-plus home runs. So I think he's actually going to turn it around. He has to. Let's be honest. The guy that I think has been just awful to start the season or first half of the season and is going to continue to be crappy, for lack of a better word, is Marcus Stroman. I know he's 6-4. I know he's pitched a lot of innings. The walks aren't really bad. I know he had, all the story with him last year, all the hoopla this year. Some people had him named as their dark horse for the AL Cy Young Award, and that was absolutely ridiculous when I started hearing that. And that's coming from a Jays fan. I mean, I want Marcus Stroman to be successful, but he was never going to be the type of pitcher that is going to compete for a Cy Young. He doesn't strike out enough guys. Yes, I think he was leading the league, or might still be leading the league in ground ball percentage. That's slowly crept down as his ERA has crept up to now 5.33. It's like 7.84 over his last 7 starts, though. There's even talk of him about going down to the minors because there's something not right. He's already starting to make changes in his mechanics. Mid-season changes in mechanics always sort of scare me a little bit because that just, to me, tells me you're searching for something as opposed to just trusting your stuff. He's never thrown more than 130 innings in a major league season. I realize he threw 165 in 2014 between AAA and in major leagues, but difference in innings, really. So he's the guy for me that is going to be a bust. And Drew Hutchison could come up and replace him while he gets, finds his way down in the minors. So I don't trust Marcus Stroman in the second half.
Okay, I'm curious, Doctor, because you're a Jays fan like I am. Do you think Stroman should be sent to the minors? I personally think he should. But what are your thoughts?
Cliff Lee, Roy Halladay, I'm trying to think of a few other ones. There's a number of pitchers that have won Cy Young awards and early in their career got sent to the minors. There's nothing wrong with sending a 25-year-old kid to the minors. I don't care if he was your opening day starter. I don't care if he was your September savior. I don't care about any of that crap. The fact of the matter is the league has figured out Marcus Stroman, and he has to figure out what he's going to do to counteract that, because he's got a lot of tools, but none of them are elite. And he's got a lot of problems with his pitches. So he's got to do something to figure that out.
Okay, Bogman, I'm going to slide it over to you now. One guy that's underachieved in the first half that's going to turn it around, so that's your buy low guy, and another guy that you think is going to continue to disappoint.
Joe is going to love both of mine.
Nice.
The guy I'm buying on is Yordano Ventura. Ventura has sucked and pissed everyone off in the first half. He has been a giant we all know that. But his last two starts before his suspension, he had 15 strikeouts, 1 walk, and 1 earned run. I think he's one of those guys that just has to pitch with some emotion, and he's got it now. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Everyone hates his guts, and I think he's going to show up for the second half. The guy I think who's been bad and is going to be bad, Joe will actually like, it's Yasiel Puig, and my analysis on him is he can eat him.
Oh my god!
I got to say, I actually agree with you on Ventura, because if you saw last year, we saw the same thing happen to him. He got sent down to the minors. Mind you, it was for an hour, right? But that was enough to light a fire under him last year. And in the second half, he took off. And he's the kind of guy, he's a bit of an oddball. And sometimes it takes something to light a fire under him. And I think maybe the suspension was it too. So I'm okay with that one. Welsh, what do you think on this one? Two guys.
Oh man, I got to tell you, it's funny with the cold guy that I could think that could return some value in the second half. I do have my secondary one, and I put Puig down, so he can eat Bogman all he wants because I think. I'm not going to pick him, but he was somebody that I put just because on his return from, I think it was on the 21st, he's at, hit in 4 of his last 5 games. So I think it's slowly coming back. He's at dirt level. But the other guy that I'm kind of honed in on that I know Spore was high on him. I was extremely high on him, and that's Matt Harvey. And it's buying low is a little bit relative here. He's still seen in that upper tier. But, when people were possibly expecting him to be a top 5 starting pitcher, I mean, the value was set there. We're talking like sub 30 right now. And you might be able to sneak him for a Carlos Martinez or something like that. So I like the second half. A lot of the pitchers with the Mets are kind of falling apart. Thor's falling apart. Steve Matz, we haven't got official word yet if he's going to have that surgery on that bone spur that he has. So, all the pitchers around him, Zach Wheeler had a little setback. It's the perfect setting, as Chris Nolan would write this, for the Dark Knight to rise again for the second half. So I'm going to go with Harvey. And the guy that I don't think they can return, I'll be honest, the guy I had was Marcus Stroman. So I'm in agreement just because Bogman and I were looking at him on our show, and it's just like, he just can't go against his division. His division just destroys him. Baltimore, Boston, I don't like any of the output for him. But another guy I'll pick is Jason Hayward. Jason Hayward came in with a lot of fanfare in preseason where people were taking him in the 3rd round. And I get he was an on-base guy, but none of that is happening this year. He looks like he's going to set career lows. Plus, Madden's there, and they're going to move players around. Wilson Contreras is out there playing left field. They got Baez. They've got a bevy of prospects waiting to come up. I know there's a lot of money attached to it, and it's not like they're going to DFA him or anything like that. But I just don't like Jason Hayward. I would want no part of it. If he got a little bit of a hot streak, I would sell him off in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I was low on him coming into the year, too. He was another one. Stanton I was low on, too. A lot of people got on me on both those guys, but that was my thoughts. Jason, what's your take on this one? One guy that's going to turn it around and one guy that's going to continue to be a bust.
Well, first of all, you shut your mouth about Jason Hayward. You know how I feel about him. I don't care if it's your last show. That's my boy. You cannot speak bad about my boy. Anyway, really, really, really lucky last year in terms of BABIP against him. He kept a lot of balls in the park, and he had a really, really, really good strand rate, but I don't think he's this bad. You look at his xFIP, it's 3.46 compared to an ERA of 5.35. Strikeout rate is still in line with what it was last year with all the talk of diminished velocity. He's basically striking out 8 guys a game. Walks are a little up. He's gotten a little unlucky with with his home run to fly ball rate this year. I think that these are all correctable things that can, I mean, if you got somebody who is impatient in your league with him at this point and you can buy him. I mean, in one of the leagues that I'm in, I wound up trading Steven Matz for Dallas Keuchel and Jake Odorizzi, and I've been pleased with the results so far with that. So if he's available in your league, you could try to target him. I think that he has, I don't know if he's going to go back to being a top 10 pitcher, but if he's top 20 the rest of the way, it would not surprise me at all.
So sorry, that was Keuchel, right? Because you were cutting out a little bit there at the beginning. So
yes, Dallas Keuchel.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
As far as my guy who's going to continue to suck per se, I'm going to cheat a little bit with this one. No pun intended. It's going to be D. Gordon, and I look at D. Gordon. Look, I've talked about D. Gordon a lot the past couple of weeks. He is going to be coming back from suspension in another. It's less than a month now. I think I said July 27th was the date that he projects to return back to the Marlins. So I started looking around my leagues and started to see available. Do I even want to waste a roster spot on in the next 4 to 5 weeks? I really think last year was a big outlier in his career. I mean, if you look at his BABIP last year, it was pretty ridiculous. It was almost 400. So he took a lot of walks last year. He didn't strike out as much. The strikeout rate is back up to where it's basically been to his career. And the other thing, too, he wasn't running a lot this year. And if you were going to draft D. Gordon in, the second or third round this year, that's what you were going to draft him for, was the elite steals production, and that's just not there. I still think that maybe in the second half he can get you, 10, 15 steals easily, but, I mean, there are probably going to be guys out there on the wire that can get you that too, and get on base at a little nicer clip than what he's going to offer you for. So I might be flip-flopping on him. I might think you're going to stay away from him.
Okay, Justin, who's your buy low guy, and who's the guy you want to stay away from that's going to continue to be a bust?
Well, first I got to say that both Bogman and the Welsh can eat my ass for stealing all my players.
I love you too, Justin.
Yeah, because I had Puig, I had Jason Hayward, I even had D. Gordon as a backup. Thanks a lot, Jason.
Welcome.
With all this eating, I think there's going to be some sort of like a or something like that going on at the next one. Like, this is going to be played at everywhere. Like,
I can't believe you're not a real doctor.
Food poisoning.
I do live in San Francisco, so I do believe Yasiel Puig will turn it around. He looks so much better coming off of the DL. Looks like a different player, a more mature player, and he's always had the skill and the talent. It's just a matter of time before he puts it all together on the field. And hopefully this is a time. Even though I hate him because he's a Dodger and kind of a showboat. Jason Hayward is a guy that I think is injured. The Welsh talked a lot about him, and so did you, Chris. So I'll kind of skip over to a different guy that I think has underperformed and won't bounce back, and that's Bryce Harper. He may have another few weeks where he busts out, but I think what we're seeing is somewhat legitimate, that pitchers have found a way to limit his power, and the only way he's going to overcome that is by going to all fields again. Last year he pulled the ball just an extreme amount of time, put an extreme amount of balls in the air. Pitchers are going away from that, forcing him to walk. In an OBP league, he's fine. He's fantastic. He's a top 10 player. But in an average league, if you play in 5x5 with average, he isn't a first rounder anymore, in my opinion.
It's funny you mention Harper, because I was going to send a tweet out yesterday, and then just as I was going to hit the button to send it, I thought twice about it. I thought, I take so much heat for a lot of things that I say. But here's the thing: is Bryce Harper the most overrated baseball player on the planet, or is it just me?
It's just
you.
Yeah, no. I don't think it's necessarily that he's overrated. I think that people there's a ton of recency bias in fantasy baseball in terms of when people see a breakout, they want to believe that that's the true talent level. And what we saw last season was one of the greatest seasons in baseball history. And then people just expected that to continue because he had such hype coming up. And I think that was just kind of a crapshoot. He's got an amazing amount of talent, but that isn't always going to be at play if pitchers go away from you.
Well, absolutely. He's still fantastic, but he can still be fantastic and be overrated.
I think the biggest problem with him is he's getting the Barry Bonds treatment, and he's not Barry Bonds. So when Barry Bonds was walking 200 times a season and hitting 73 home runs, pitchers would make one mistake a game, and he was sending it in the stands. And right now, Bryce Harper, he's seeing that same one mistake a game, and unfortunately, he's not Barry Bonds. He's not sending it in the stands. But people forget he's 22 years old.
Like when Barry Bonds was doing it, he was 38, 39 years old.
And he'd received several mysterious packages from the Caribbean.
No, but actually, I think the doctor's actually spot on there. I mean, in the beginning, I think that's a problem where you're almost becoming over selective at times, and when you're sitting there and you're walking as much as you are during that month that he did. Doctor's totally right. What happens there when a guy like Bonds, he's such an advanced hitter at that point in his career.
Exactly.
That he has the discipline to wait on everything else. And Bryce Harper is a young, aggressive kid by nature. So what you're seeing is him being a little over-aggressive now, trying to compensate, but the team is winning. He's got a veteran manager who, ironically, managed Barry Bonds during that same period. So I think he would get out of it just fine.
Okay, I think he'll get out of it, but like I say, he's not Barry Bonds. So I think he's going to have a fine season. I don't think he's... I mean, does he hit the heights of last year? No, maybe not. But, I mean, he has had some great months in his past. I just think that he needs to or people need to remember how young he is. So is he a first rounder yet next year? Yeah, I think he is, regardless of how the season, unless he's absolutely atrocious. But I don't think he's going to be atrocious. He's a first rounder for me for probably the next 10 years because he's got the skill set and he's going to do it. And as he matures and as he becomes better at hitting that one mistake a game or those two mistakes a game, then he's just going to become that much better of a pitcher or better of a hitter, and then pitchers are going to get even more nervous, and he might even start seeing a few more mistakes a game, just the way Barry Bonds did. Like, he's just too good. I see why you think he's overrated, but he's going to get $500 million as his next contract.
Don't confuse
he's
overrated.
Worth every penny.
Don't confuse overrated with overexposed. There's a difference. He's not overrated. The talent is real. He's overexposed because he's young and pretty, and he's got a ton of endorsements. So you see him. He's very media savvy, and he's very Major League Baseball is embracing him as one of the young faces of the game. So don't confuse overrated. His talent is far from overrated. Overexposed, yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you guys both brought up some interesting points. And for that period of time when he was getting walked like crazy, when he wasn't getting walked, he wasn't doing anything with the pitches he got. So that's the thing that I was making, and you both brought that point up. So congratulations to both of you. Joe, we got you on here. So give me two players. One that's going to turn it around and one that's going to continue.
Well, look, it's finally done. I'm breaking up with Matt Moore. We're done. Nice. I mean, it's just an abusive relationship he and I have been through over the years. I told Paul Sporter the other day, I don't know if he's ready to, but I'm done. It's just over. The strikeout rate is so tantalizing. The ability flashes every now and then. He'll throw up one of these 10K starts, and you go, oh, yes, that's what Matt Moore could be. And then the next thing you know, he's just, 5 innings and 5 runs again. It's just a disaster. So I'm done with Matt Moore. He and I are broken up. Nothing's ever happening with us again. It's done. No more therapy, nothing. And the guy that I'm going to pick up either off the waiver wire or just get for nothing is Severino. Dan is definitely right about Pineda. Pineda, if you watch Pineda recently too, being in the New York area, I've watched him pitch, and his demeanor has been much better. And I killed him on this show and every show for months because his demeanor on the mound was just poor. And that was partially contributing to why he was pitching so poorly. And his demeanor has gotten better. But Severino has been very good in AAA. He'll get right. The Yankees are going to bring him back up. Nate Eovaldi is a complete piece of crap, and he always will be. And there's going to be opportunity for Severino at some point to come back there.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We're going to hit the waiver wire.
Can't get enough fantasy baseball in your life? Pennant Wars is a baseball simulation game that lets you get your fantasy baseball fix year-round. Full 162-game seasons simulate in just 6 weeks, so you don't have to wait years for that high school shortstop you drafted to become a star. Pennant Wars is a fun, loyal, and growing community of players, all competing to build their own baseball dynasties. Say goodbye to the off-season blues and say hello to PennantWars.com. That's PENNANT Wars.com.
Fantasy Baseball Waiver Wire Pitchers.
Now, before we get started on taking a look at some pitchers here, I did have to mention Dan Strafford had to lay out, guys. So he had to go. So we say thanks a lot to Dan for joining us, and all the best of luck with him taking the show forward. I think he's going to do a great job. But in the meantime, too,
Asgard needs some accounting.
Yeah, exactly. Loki. If Loki was an accountant, that would be Dan Strafford.
Hey, Chris.
Yep.
Real quick, I know I have been quiet for a little while, but I'm literally pissing myself trying to say this. I don't know if you guys are watching the Cubs game playing.
Oh yeah, watching it.
Chris Bryant,
and Rizzo
Chris
back
Bryant.
to back.
Don't steal my thunder, you bastard. Chris
You
Bryant.
see what I did there?
In 5 at bats, Chris Bryant has 5 hits, guys, 2 doubles and 3 home runs. And guess whose lineup he's in?
No one cares about your DFS team, Nancy.
It is lit. I'm sitting at 161 points, and I still have Matt Schumacher and Samardzija. So
most extra base hits in a game for a Cub since 1885. So there's always that. So that's just incredible. So we're obviously watching the scoreboard. Hey, at the top of the show, I asked the 3 regulars if they'd have a drink with me. I'll ask you guys. You guys gonna have a drink with me or what?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's have another one here.
All right, here we go.
Just a drink?
Yeah, just one. Okay, so something a little bit different this week in this segment. I want you to give us a pitcher that's available in the majority of leagues that you think should be scooped up for the second half. Doctor, take us away. Who's your waiver wire pitcher?
The guy I'm actually going to name, you're probably going to hammer me for being a homer, but I've already mentioned him, and that's Drew Hutchison. At some point, whether it's Stroman going down to the minors or Aaron Sanchez getting moved to the pen, which one of those things is going to happen. We already know that Sanchez is on an innings limit, but Drew Hutchison, and Chris, I know you picked him up for his 1-spot start when he actually did okay earlier this year in the Richard Mason League. When Drew Hutchison comes back, I mean, yes, he had a bad road home split last year. He was unusable in September when he was still pitching, but when he comes back, I think he's found whatever he lost last year. I think he's going to be more than usable, and he will be someone that I think you're going to be able to trust going into the second half of the season once he gets his call up, because once he gets called up, I don't think he's going back down.
Okay, Joe, who's your waiver wire pitcher that you want to pick up for the second half?
Well, I'll give you 2 quick ones. The first one is Derek Norris.
Derek Norris is pitching now?
Daniel Norris. My apologies. I'm sorry. The doctor's here, and it's starting to seep into my brain. Daniel Norris from the Tigers, because he's getting that second chance, and this was a guy that was on everybody's radar heading into the year.
He's from Detroit.
He is from Detroit.
Look at that.
Yes. So I think that's a guy that, had he not gotten injured, he'd be in there all this time, and he would be a mildly productive pitcher. But a guy who's really under the radar is Dylan Overton from the Oakland A's. This was a very highly touted college pitcher coming into the Major League draft, had some injury issues, and his stock just plummeted. But this was a guy who was being considered in the first couple rounds of the Major League Baseball draft a couple years ago, and basically became a forgotten man, and has had some pretty decent runs in the minor leagues at A-ball and throughout AAA recently, and I think he's going to get a look. Now, whether or not he sticks right away in this rotation, I'm not sure, but in those very deep leagues, that's a guy that I would certainly speculate and throw in there, because there's an opportunity where Oakland can always be selling guys off the next thing you know, and Overton, I think, has an opportunity to make at least 10 starts in the second half, and they could be decent ones if you're in a 15 to 20 team league.
Okay, Justin, who's your waiver wire pitcher for the second half that you advise people to pick up?
I got 1 starter and 1 reliever. Daniel Mengden of the Oakland A's is in the rotation. I think he's in there for good. He was part of the Kashmir trade. Wrote about him on my most recent Rotographs column last Wednesday as a guy who doesn't have overpowering stuff, no plus pitches, but they're all average to above average pitches, and pitches one of the best pitchers' parks in baseball, and on a team that isn't going to replace them because they really have nothing, and everything they have they're going to probably sell off. So he's a guy that I like, especially in deeper formats. If you're looking for saves for later on in the year, you might want to speculate on Corey Guerin of San Francisco. He seems to have passed Hunter Strickland as kind of the primary setup guy to Santiago Casilla. Casilla has been kind of up and down this season, had some attitude issues. Bochy has been less than super supportive as he was earlier in the season towards Casilla. So if for some reason Casilla would get demoted out of the closer role, I think it would be actually Guerin as opposed to Hunter Strickland who would gain the role.
Okay, Jason, who do you advise people pick up for the second half? It's available on the wire.
This is the type of year that I like to scan the waiver wire for guys that are DL eligible, that are about to start rehab assignments. I got 2 of them for you. One of them is Homer Bailey. He actually just began a rehab assignment tonight down at AAA Louisville. He might be called up probably towards the end of July if everything goes right. And I mean, when he was on, 2 years ago, this guy was really good. And in that mold, the other guy I like as well, who just started bullpen sessions, is Alex Cobb. Both guys unowned in under 10% of leagues. Look at them to have some sort of an effect on after the All-Star break this year.
All right, the Welsh, over to you.
Joe earlier talked about Luis Severino. That was one that I definitely think 18% owned in Yahoo. That's one. Another one to take a look at, and he's quietly been productive for a little while here, and I think it could continue, is Tom Kohler in Miami. 6 of his last 8 starts has a quality start. He has 6 strikeouts or more in 6 of those last 8, and he has 4 wins over that stretch too. Marlins, they've had a pretty good offense outside of Stanton. If Stanton can turn it around, you get D. Gordon coming back. I think Tom Kohler could continue outside of some walks, and he's like a blow-up guy too. Like his ERA is a little inflated, but if you go and look, it's over specific starts. He's getting you quality starts. He can get you some strikeouts. He can pull out some wins. So I like Tom Kohler. And he's only 13% owned in Yahoo right now. I like Luis Severino and just one other guy, Martin Perez, who doesn't do a lot of striking out, but man, he has just weirdly been able to stay in games, not give up a ton of runs, and he's just been one of those great pitchers. If you had to trade off pitching to get hitting and you're just trying to fill those spots, Martin Perez has been pretty solid.
Oh, good ones all around. Bogman, over to you.
Well, I can't believe the Welsh didn't say this, but Tyler Glasnow has a grab and stash, just in case he gets called up, would be one of them. But the other guy that I picked was Zach Davies. He's 48% owned. He's been getting a lot of Ks lately. He had a stretch of 4 wins, and that's on the Brewers, who aren't that great. The one downside is he kind of looks like Yancy, so that's a little annoying.
Zach Davies looks like he's 12, doesn't he?
Yeah,
does he tweet out about fruit and stuff like that too?
Yeah, I think so.
Cal Davies probably has Yancy on his fantasy podcast team for sure, and he talks about it in the clubhouse all the time.
It's funny.
I'm a really good-looking man.
And it's funny too. I was noticing a game the other day, and I was saying, I put it out on Twitter. Chase Utley looks like he could be Zach Davies' grandpa.
He does.
Like he looks so old, and then you got Zach Davies looks like he's like a kid. Anyway, no, Davies is a good one. So anything else to say on Davies there?
No, I like him. He's been striking out a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll tell you what, guys. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Nate Duck. This is Joe Osachi. And I'm Jesse Jordan. We do a fantasy baseball podcast called The Nasty Cast. We're not your average baseball show. We focus on both redraft and dynasty formats, but mostly on fun and entertainment. But don't just take it from us. Here's what our listeners had to say. Jacob says, "This podcast does things to me that no woman has ever been able to accomplish." Or Van, who said, "Have you ever found yourself in a barren wasteland of snow and oxen? Have you ever been forced to sell one of your mini children for grain so that you could survive the harshness of winter? If you have, and you're also a fan of baseball, then this podcast is for you. You'll never stop coming back, and you might just learn a little about love." Check out the Nasty Cast on iTunes and Stitcher today.
Joe wants to know.
All right, Joe, over to you, my friend.
Well, in honor of our fearless leader, Chris McBrien, packing it in, finally going off into a retirement. Is this semi-retirement from fantasy baseball or just fantasy baseball podcasting? Yeah. You're still going to play fantasy baseball, or you're just done?
I'll still play fantasy.
Okay, I just want to know what your plans are a little bit too. Before you can get that, let's. What are your plans now for Monday nights? What are you going to do? Because we know you don't watch football, so it's not like in the fall you're going to be watching football Monday night. So what the hell are you going to do with yourself?
Like I said, I've got a lot of things on the go in terms of work and family that are taking up a lot of my time, so I'm going to be concentrating on that. Like I said, I'm going to be stepping back. The thing is, doing a podcast like this, and I think just to pull back the curtain a little bit that people don't realize, is the amount of work that goes into it, the amount of preparation, doing an hour-and-a-half show every week. It seems like it's pretty effortless, but a lot of work actually goes into it, especially post as well. So I'm looking forward to going to bed early on Monday nights. And like I said, I'm not retiring entirely from the podcasting world, just from fantasy baseball. It's time for me to take a little bit of a break, just kind of step back, and I'm still going to do like a little half-hour podcast on pop culture world. That's going to be a lot of fun, but I'm looking forward to getting a good night's sleep on Monday nights. I'm not going to lie.
All right, so everyone listening, he's turning you in for sleep. That's what he's doing to you. He's walking away for you for more sleep.
And family, and my career. But
yes, and family. You're a wonderful person, and you're Canadian. We all know this about you already. And we cut you open, you bleed crunch berries. We're well aware of all the things. So here we go. We're going to send this around the room, too. We're going to take you one at a time because God knows there's so freaking many of us. Let's take this one at a time. Let us start with Mr. Consoli. When I mention Chris McBrien, certain things come to mind with you. But is there a certain memory of the podcast or a certain memory of being a part of this that was your favorite Chris McBrien moment? What's your favorite Chris McBrien moment that stands out to you?
Well, I'm going to take this in two parts, Joe, because
the show's not going to run long, so take it in two parts by all means.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this in 6 parts. Chapter 1.
It's like when Rodney Dangerfield has to answer that question at the end of Back to School. I have one question in 37 parts.
As many of you know, I've been involved with this podcast for pretty much since the beginning of it. I was in fact the first guest that Chris had on the podcast. It's funny how we actually got connected. I had just started to promote the company that my brother and I are involved in, that you've heard many times before on this podcast, FantasySixMan.com. We're the first ones off the bench. Follow me at FantasySixMan.
Shameless promotion.
Hey, I'm a slut and a whore. What do you want from me?
Please, what should I say?
I randomly did a search on Twitter for fantasy sports podcasts, and a couple of names came up, and Chris was one of them. I heard a couple of the episodes that he had, and I'm like, all right, this guy seems kind of cool. Let me see if I reach out to him, if he says, yeah, you know what, we have a platform. We came on. I probably rambled a little bit too long about my service, but it was a fun time, and I was honored to come back every time afterward. And the only thing that I'd like to add is this: is that my best experiences with this podcast, it doesn't even come from the times that I'm on the air. Like most people that listen to this podcast, I do have a life outside of fantasy sports. I have a day job that sometimes you come home from work and your day sucks and you're looking for an escape. And for me, that escape has always been fantasy sports. It's always been something that has given me a connection to my family and friends. It's a way to channel my competitiveness, and just to give me a basis to talk to people with. And I think that above all, that's what this podcast has meant to me. It's given me a venue to reach out to a lot of the people out there. And I've heard from a lot of you. I've heard from people from all over the country. And for that, Chris, I can't thank you enough for what you started with this. As you know, behind the scenes, in the past couple of weeks, I've tried my best to get you to stay on and continue this. I've offered you. I've gone as far as to Google various Canadian sex fetishes.
Oh my!
And nothing has been to your liking. Although I will say,
wasn't in your personal time.
I'll say when I go on my honeymoon now, I know what a Mountie Moose knuckle is. So that's a good thing. But no, I will never be able to express my gratitude towards what you have. Be able to create here, for what you've been able to let me be a part of. It's been a blessing, and it's been an honor to have this time with you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Jason. You're a good friend. And I will say this, that you were the first guest that I ever had on. And at the time, one of my good friends, I got a lot of friends that are in the radio business, and one of my good friends, I asked him if he could come on behind the scenes and just kind of polish the show for me. Almost like a play polisher. Joe would know what I'm talking about with that. I had him come in and kind of as a play polisher, and he just said, the guest that you have, Jason, is phenomenal. He's got a great voice. He's got a good personality. And so you've been a part of the show ever since, and thanks. I consider you a really good friend.
We love you, brother. If I was here, I would give you a big hug and a kiss, because that's how we do it in Jersey.
She's right. That's how we do. It's not gonna lie. It's gonna be a lot of man kissing on this show for the next foreseeable future with me and Consoli. I can tell you right there. It's gonna make Dan uncomfortable because he's very, very white, which is also a very, very big plus. So let us get to Yancy Eaton. You're the biggest Chris McBrien groupie that there is. So we know that you've followed him for years and years. You've waited outside the stage door for him, and plenty of those Canadian sex acts are probably within your sphere.
Oh, my.
So I'm curious, Yancy Eaton, what is your favorite memory, if you will, of Chris McBrien and the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast?
I have a couple, but I'll make them really short just so I can kind of list them off. Obviously, before I was involved in the show, always messaging back and forth and talking with Chris about the show. We did that almost every single week, didn't we, Chris? Just back and forth. Hey, what'd you think about the show? What'd you think about this? Blah, blah, blah. And so having that back and forth and just feeling like my feedback mattered, you know, like anytime I would email in the show or I would tweet at Chris, like it made the show. And that was huge. You know, I've told you guys before how I don't have family and friends in real life that watch baseball or even talk about it at all. So to be, you know, to enjoy something and be brought into that, you know, that realm, it was awesome. That's what kept me from playing. If I didn't have that type of group, that, you know, that support system, I would have moved on to something else. Whenever I actually got onto the show, many people have said that the drunk episode is whenever I became a man.
Oh, it's a classic. It was awesome. It might be one of my favorite moments on the show, I gotta be honest.
I'm not gonna lie. I've listened to that show like more than once since then, and it was just a lot of fun. Like I'm just like grinning from like ear to ear, just like it was fun, and it was completely genuine, and the back and forth and stuff, and that was fantastic. But probably my most favorite is how much you guys like drop in and I'm oblivious to, and as I'm slowly catching up and like learning what you guys are talking about and little inside jokes and references to things I've never seen, like I'm a dumb you know, like like you guys have literally been punking me like since I've been on the show, and I was oblivious to it. So
yeah, just but you're smart enough now that you've watched Major League. I mean, that's really when you became a man. Forget when you got the first time, or the first drunken podcast. The first time you watched Major League, I think that's your official bar mitzvah.
I crossed over, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of good moments. I just every time we do the show, it's a lot of fun, and it's really been a sweet ride to do it with you, Chris.
That's awesome. It's been great having you on. I got to say, Yancy, every time that we make a change on the show, I always try to get better. I'm always constantly like striving for continuous improvement. That's one thing I always try to do. And when I added you onto the show was one of my favorite moments, because I think it just took things in a different direction. And I'm really actually looking forward to working with you in the future.
Cool. Likewise.
I'll come on. I guess it's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's all good. It's fine. How about you, Mr. Mason? Is there a certain memory of Chris McBrien that sticks out for you, whether it be on the podcast or off the podcast or around the podcast or under the podcast, for that matter?
Well, I have a number of them, but I'll try to stick to one since no one else is. And that was Chris was actually the first person that I personally interviewed by myself on Friends of Fantasy Benefits. At the time, I wasn't the host of the show. I was just the talent.
Yeah, I remember that.
And both our hosts had to bail. One, a car broke down, and was stuck on the side of the road. The other one had a kid emergency and couldn't do it. And all of a sudden, they're like, "Justin, you're gonna host with Chris McBrien," and I was so nervous, and it was really nerve-wracking. And Chris came on, he cracked open a beer, he told me to calm down, and we had a lot of fun. We talked about Josh Hamilton and his recent relapse that had happened at that time, and we really didn't talk a lot of numbers. We just talked about baseball and our love of baseball, our love of the game, and it was a lot of fun. And it was one of the first moments for me where I felt like I really belonged in the industry, and that was in large part due to Chris. And so I'll always be thankful for everything he's given me personally in this industry, and everything he's done for my site. I said this on the ITL program that I was on earlier today. I'll be coming out in a few days. That Chris is not just like a fun guy to listen to. He's a genuinely great dude and good person in real life. I will forever be grateful for having to get to know him.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Or Chase. Thanks a lot, Justin. I remember that interview.
Fred, I'll never forget you.
Yeah, that was awesome. I've already had about 6 beers, so you gotta forgive me on this one. No, I remember that. That was an amazing interview, because the thing was, we just kind of threw everything aside and we just started talking about baseball, and we just kind of went off script. And you're right, I remember we were talking about Hamilton, and you were getting kind of personal about some of your personal experiences and some of the demons that you've had to overcome. That was one of the best interviews I've ever been a part of, so thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
That was
We're talking about Josh Hamilton, right? Not the musical Hamilton. I just want to be sure.
We inspired the musical Hamilton. And we got no credit for that. Yeah,
we actually broke into song in the segment.
About Josh Hamilton. Chris, when you leave the podcast, that's what you should do. You should devote your life to a Lin-Manuel Miranda style Josh Hamilton musical. I want you to get on that. That's what you want to do. All right, Bogman, Welsh. Let's see. Let's start with the pretty one. Bogman.
Very pretty.
How about you? What's your Chris McBrien moment?
Just before you start, Bogman, if you look at all of Joe's Facebook photos that he posts and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure he's not allowed to make fun of anyone for being the pretty one. I've never seen a man do more duck face and more selfies than Joe.
Have you looked at the Welsh's Facebook?
We're not friends on Facebook.
Oh,
or the life.
Nor will you be. Buckner's just jealous because I can actually fit my face into that small square. Don't ever battle with me. I'm from Brooklyn.
Well, Chris McBrien can eat my. No, I'm just kidding.
Boy, that's a busy day, boy. You got Puig in there already. Jeez.
Oh, get in there. Yeah, you got to get in there. No, Chris McBrien has always been helpful for me in the Welsh, and I can go down all of those streets, and he's a helpful guy. He's a nice guy. But I think the real thing is that I appreciate about Chris McBrien is that he's a sneaky. Like,
you're right. He is.
He will make this comment, but it's in a cheery voice. And
could we hear it one more time? Can you do one?
And everybody says it's okay because it's Chris McBrien, the nice guy, and I love it. It's my favorite thing about Chris McBrien, and I'm going to miss it. And seriously, send me that wreath back because I did think you were dying.
Can you do one? Can you do one, Bogman? Just for old time's sake, could you do a Chris McBrien like a backhanded insult real fast?
Oh, Joe, it's just you do the duck faith on your Facebook just because you're an ugly guy, but that's okay because everyone's ugly. Sometimes you just got to do a duck face.
Yeah, sometimes people need filters. I mean, come on.
Black and white, and you're really bald, but it's okay. Nobody judges.
How about you, Welsh? You got a Chris McBrien memory?
Yeah, I love creation. I mean, everybody knows, we get highly produced and, kind of in the same mold as Dear Mr. Fantasy has always been. We want high quality. I want good interviews. I want good conversations, and we've always had that with Chris. But in the vein of thinking about and honoring, the great stuff that Chris has done, I've loved being a part of some of the more memorable moments here. And the one particular was when it was the three of us, Joe. It was you, me, and Chris, and the Dinklage was created.
It's a Dinklage.
I think I was on, it was the first episode of last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my goddamn mic wasn't working right, and still. And we just went bonkers, and we were talking about and then Dinklages, and we created that thing. This year we went all about C-Dick and Yancy with the C-Dick in his hands and everything, and I love the humor, I love the creation, I love that Chris has always tried to grab onto it, and I'm sad.
C-Dick?
Yes, Dinklage, the tiny C-Dicks, everything, and I'm sad that we're getting as I'm calling it, the McBrexit here, that we're leaving the show. And
there's your hashtag right there.
Yeah, the McBrexit is a sad moment for all of us, and we should be, like we're doing now, we should be honoring. And I don't know if we're gonna have a whole nother thing here to say goodbye, but there's a famous kind of speech that was given, and I felt like
he's not actually dying.
Yeah, no, but he's like going away. And in fantasy sports, to not have McBrien around, to have those little comments, or have that just that great friend right by there, there's a little speech that we all may know that I needed to kind of twist around and make in a kind of McBrien fashion. So here, just bear with me for a second.
Today is a sad day in the podcast world. Nobody wanted the McBrexit, but things must change. We will remember the greatness that is Chris McBrien, lover of crunch berries, lover of baseball, maybe the worst voice in radio, but the voice in our hearts for fantasy baseball. Remember this day, June 27th, as Chris McBrien Day. Oh, Canada, Chris McBrien, we love you. We love you.
Well, that's my love for Chris McBrien. Love him dearly. Love everything that he does, and he should be celebrated in speech form. God damn this McBrexit. Don't leave us.
Well, there you have it. That was a fantastic bit of audio. Thank you, Welsh. I don't think our lives will ever be the same. Now, we were always saved the best for last, but unfortunately, you couldn't find anybody else. So, the doctor, now that we've got you here, you close us out. You were here longer than anybody. You spent more time with Chris. So, give us your favorite Chris McBrien moment from the podcast, if you will.
Well, I guess I've known Chris longer than just the podcast has gone on. So, a little bit of history on that. We were in each other's wedding parties. I mean, we have jokes that go back ages. Yancy, I know what you're talking about when you say, they're dropping all this, and they've done it several times this show. I don't want to call it knowledge, because really it's just useless information about movies from the 70s that many people may or may not have watched. Right. But, in terms of the show, when Chris started the podcast, it's because I introduced him to podcasts. I introduced him to ESPN and all the other stuff, and he took it from there. As Chris is, if you know Chris, that's what he does. You give him an idea, and he runs with it. Now, that's the only running he'll ever do, but he at least runs with that. You mentioned that it's a McBrexit. Some people don't realize this, but Chris actually went to a Catholic high school, so in true Catholic tradition, Chris is actually really just pulling out.
Oh, my.
I know the podcast will go on, but,
Wow.
I did do
good, Mike.
I did do over 100 shows with Chris. It was just me and Chris, and we just said, you know what, people may or may not like it, but the podcast really should be about, just two guys. And this was the whole, if there was a storyboard, it would have been this. Two guys sitting at a bar, having a couple beers, talking about baseball. And that really was the storyboard. That's how it started. It morphed from there. Chris being the guy that was going to run with it, basically do 100% of the behind-the-scenes work, whatever. That's just Chris's MO. So that's how it got started. Then 100 and whatever many shows later, I was done with the show. Joe was brought in. I moved on. But because of that show, I got to go to Vegas for the podcast awards. I'm now on the Fantasy Insider Show with Joel Hennard, basically recording the same time as the DMF show. We're powered by SoCalledFantasyExperts.com. You can find us on Blog Talk Radio /the Fantasy Insiders. We're on Blog Talk Radio. We're on the Fantasy Sports Network. We're on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, the TuneIn app, along with Sports for Fan Radios on the Radio Loyalty mobile app, produced by Sean Stewart every Monday night at 9 p.m. So
take a lesson, Consoli. That's how you whore.
Exactly. Doctor.
Promote? I didn't know it.
Doctor, if you had promoted our podcast as well, you never would have left.
and that's exactly why I did it on this show. I had to do it in there because I knew I was going to take some ribbing for it. But, it was a great show. Let me talk to Greg Zahn. I go to, I don't know if any of you have ever had the opportunity to go to Pitch Talks in your city. If not, or if it's ever, I know it's been to New York because I know Buster Olney brought it there. But go, it's amazing. But because of that, I get to talk to people, beat writers. We've had Shai Davidi on my show. I don't know if you've ever had him on yours. But I get to talk to Shai now as a friend. I can call him up now, and if I need inside information about the Blue Jays or any other people, I can email people like that and be like, hey, what's going on with this sort of stuff? It's brought me into the industry, and it started with, hey, let's record a show, two guys talking baseball, having a couple beers.
Well, there you go. Look at that. The doctor here. Is that your sentimental? Is that your play at sentimental?
Also, I guess if I wanted to be a little bit sentimental, to pull the curtain back that's behind the curtain, I know there's a lot of there's
animosity.
Really a lot of going on in this show, and I don't know that Chris has been a bigger to anyone on this show than he has been to me, but it comes from a place of love.
It does.
So I agree with that. Me and Chris, he'll say some of the rudest, most obnoxious things to me on the show, and then later on I'll get a text message. So are you going to be in our hometown? Where you want to grab a beer? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like that, you say that he does it with a smile because he's not meaning to be rude or anything like that. It's just two guys sitting at a bar, kicking each other in the nuts. Really, is what it is. So it was nothing but love and nothing but fun while I was here, and I'm so glad that I did it because I'm still doing it today, and as I said, you can find me every Monday on the Fantasy Insider Show with Joel Hennard.
All right. Jesus Christ.
Wow, what happened to this? You know, I mean,
how much do we have to pay for that?
Saskatchewan. Oh God. Look, I'll be quick with mine. First of all, yeah, my favorite episode ever being on was the Dinklage.
It's a Dinklage.
I don't know if I've ever laughed that hard. I believe I was literally crying at one point during that podcast. It was special. It was a special, magical night. And in honor of this podcast, I don't know if you gentlemen realize this, but in Boston right now, there is a Dinklage.
It's a Dinklage
going on between actually it's Tampa, actually in Yancey's backyard. The Red Sox, Mr. Rodriguez, 9 earned runs in 2 2/3 there for Mr. Rodriguez. So that makes me happy that there was a Dinklage.
It's a Dinklage
tonight in honor of you, Chris McBrien. And the only thing I'll say here is, you know, I know there was a point where you were unsure if you wanted to continue doing the show not that long ago, and you asked me to be a part of it, and I was very humbled by that because I always enjoyed the program. I always enjoyed being a guest of the program, and it's been terrific doing this show with you. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Last year I had a lot of personal issues and things going on in my own life, a lot of transition stuff, and it was always nice to know Monday nights I could let everything go and kind of vanish into the world of fantasy baseball with you. And just like our listeners need that time sometimes where they can step back from everything and just listen to this show, that's exactly what it is for us doing it. And I don't think people always realize that. And it's been a terrific time. You're a first-class guy, Mr. McBrien. You are everything that everybody says and jokes. All the things are true. And I have to say, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to have you on when you're ready as a guest of the DMF as we continue on. And we're continuing on half because of us just not wanting to let it die because of what we created here, because I think it's special. And I think the listeners realize it's special. And I think it would be a great disservice to them and to you if we just let it go. And we're going to do everything we can to make you proud, Dan, myself, Jason, and Yancy, and all of those things. And all of this was brought to you by the Fantasy Insiders podcast starring
fantasy6man.com. That is fantasy6man.com.
Can we talk about the real winners here in this league.com and the ITL Fantasy Baseball podcast? Yes.
That's what that's brought to you by the Fantasy Black Book.
It's funny that you mentioned all that, Jonah. It's funny that we're getting all our plugs in, and I'll say that only because of this. And I know you guys have all been guests on the show, and Bogman and the Welsh, we never had the privilege of doing this. Justin, I can't remember if we did or not.
We did, actually. We did.
I kind of remember. It's been so long, and I've done so many shows on the Fantasy Insiders, now powered by so-called Fantasy X. But anyways, I will say this. The other favorite part, and I hope all of you guys will agree with this, of talking with Chris is talking with all of you guys, and I'm sure it still goes on now on your show, in this league, on Fantasy with Friends with Fantasy Benefits. It's the before and after when you can just talk a little bit of or talk about what's going on. It never gets recorded, or maybe it does get recorded for blackmail purposes later. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But it's the 10-minute lead up to the actual recording, and probably the 5 minutes after the recording, when you're just like, yeah, and did you hear this? Or just to build on that one point. I didn't want to say it on the show, but that extra little stuff that we get as podcast people, podcast hosts and guests and co-hosts and whatever we're calling ourselves these days is something that Chris has given to us as guests and co-hosts and other show joiners that, unfortunately it's a little selfish of me, because the listeners will never get to hear that, but that's something that's probably, to me, the funnest part of the show. As much as I love doing the hour I do with Joel and the hour I did with Chris for all those times, that was always my favorite part of the show, was the immediately before and immediately after.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Those were some lovely sentiments you shared. Doctor, do you have anything you'd like to add as far as where everyone can find you? And that's all that I want to know about that.
All right, guys, let's get to some feedback.
You've got mail.
Fantasy baseball feedback.
Okay, Yancy, it's over to you, my friend.
All right, guys. I just wanted to say one more quick thing.
Sure.
About the last segment. I know we're running long and stuff, but it's a special show, obviously. I don't know if you guys if the listeners have ever heard this. I don't think Chris has ever mentioned this on the show in public, but do you guys know all those commercials that you guys hear in between our segments and all of the hits and, other podcasts and stuff like that, that get little 30-second advertisements and promo spots and stuff on the podcast? Chris has never taken a dime for any of that stuff. That is literally him basically gifting exposure for a podcast that we get thousands and thousands of listeners, and Chris gives all these other people exposure for free, right? So that just goes to show that he's not self-serving, he's not doing it for himself, he's literally building up a community. I mean, even how many podcasts has he been on? Everybody's here, obviously, we all have different podcasts and stuff. Has he ever said no to you guys? He's never said no to anybody, right? And he kind of engendered that spirit in me, no, I'm actually starting to get invited on a podcast, which is a huge mistake on everybody's parts involved, but just to be charitable with your time and treat everybody like they're important and that their feedback matters, I think is the biggest lesson that I've learned so far from Chris. But I should have said it earlier, but I wanted to mention it now. But for the feedback segment,
before you get started on this, Yancy, the feedback, if someone could just email Chris's wife, so then we can have the crying Jordan meme, the crying LeBron meme, and then we'll have the crying McBrien meme.
Crying McBrien, I like that.
All right, so I'm just gonna hit these off really, really quick, guys, because we have a few. Just some goodbye, farewell wishes and stuff like that from really, really ardent supporters of the show. There are a lot of people who reached out to us, but they were basically said best of luck or congratulations. I didn't include those because it would have been literally in the hundreds. So right off the top, Darren Florent, he says, "Damn, thanks for all the good fantasy baseball talk. Best of luck with everything, Chris." Steven Isaac, "Thanks, Chris. You will be missed. I understand walking away from things. I did this season after spending 12 summers guiding in Alaska. Wish you best, my friend." Mike Warner, we all know Mike. Chris,
yes.
You've been nothing short of amazing with your support with the community and with the quality you've put out these last few years. You will be missed, and a little Facebook comment won't convey how great you've been. I consider you a friend, and I wish nothing but the best for you. Our buddy Lenny Melnick, the Godfather. Probably my favorite comment he left for you. "You have done a great job."
That's pretty good.
In true Lenny fashion.
Yeah. That's pretty good coming from Lenny. Let me tell you. That's
last time he was on the show, he said I was ugly, so that's good. Yeah.
Our buddy Nate Dawkin from the Nasty Cast. "While this is horrid news for fantasy baseball, I'm sure it had to be done. You've been incredibly gracious and set the bar for podcasting. I cannot thank you enough. I want to wish you the best of luck in everything moving forward, my northern friend who lives slightly to the south with a Canadian flag." Stephen Brunn, really, really good, loyal listener to the show. He says, "Here's hoping there's an honorary Dinklage Monday night while you guys are recording." Thank you, Chichi Rodriguez, for that. Jeremy Gibbs, our buddy, he literally smokes my ass in every league that I'm in with him. He says, "I'm very sad to hear this. You've grown so much over these 4 years. The podcast is one of the best that is out there. Thank you for your hours of informative entertainment. Thank you more for your friendship and indirectly giving me my start in the industry." Jesse Jordan, also from the Nasty Cast. "The fantasy baseball community will miss you, as you truly are the nicest guy around. Thanks for creating one of the most entertaining and informational podcasts around. Hashtag the North will never forget." I guess that's Game of Thrones. Is that Game of Thrones?
Yes, I guess. And you're going to host a pop culture show? Me.
I watched one episode and there was gratuitous incest, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm out.
We know where Yancy draws the line.
You know it's fake, right, Yancy? You're just allowed to enjoy the boobs.
Wait, I want to know. Wait, so you drew the line because it was gratuitous incest or just the incest?
I can take a little bit of incest.
Just really brother and sister. You do know that, right?
If it was
he said he was out,
done.
he meant out of his pants.
All right. I got a lot of these. You guys got to shut up for a second. All right. Chris Boudreau says, I feel like I just got punched in the stomach. I wish you nothing but the best. I hope it is for good reasons that you're walking away. I seriously wish you nothing but the best and hope at least to hear from you on other shows or something. You're a fixture in the industry and you have a lot to give. Good luck, pal. Kurt Kalin, our buddy Kurt, Canadian. Thank you for every single second, Chris. You've brought people together in a way that I did not think was possible. It's meant a lot to me personally, the free time you have donated to me and countless others. Aaron Bogdanowicz, he says, well, I knew you were probably upset Adam and I left Friends with Fantasy Benefits. Bet you didn't have to do this, though. All kidding aside, you and Tim McLeod are probably the two nicest people in this industry, and both Canadian. You were very helpful to Friends with Fantasy Benefits when you did not have to be. We had some classic shows with you and Joe that I'll never forget, and of course, you're the first and current reigning Mr. Podcast. May your talents shine elsewhere, and may your cupboards always be full of crunch berries. You are the best, Chris. Brian Baugh, thanks, Chris. Best of luck going forward. Thank you for DMF. Our buddy Keith Renshaw. I'm not a Seminole guy at all, but I have to say thank you, Chris. Dear Mr. Fantasy was the very first podcast I ever listened to. Before that, I didn't even know what the hell a podcast was, and to this day, it's still my favorite. Well done through the years, Mr. Fantasy. Our buddy Tim McLeod, our neighbor to the north. He says it is so tough to balance a career, a young family, and an extended hobby. I sure couldn't do it, and I didn't until the boys were off to college. The industry and your many friends will miss your contributions, Chris. Spending time with you, Joe, and Yancy talking up the game was always a treat, and I want to personally thank you for your kindness and generosity in allowing me that opportunity. Here's wishing you and your family nothing but the best in all of your future endeavors. Todd Osman, thanks for all the hard work, effort, information, entertainment. Best of luck. Our buddy Easy Evan, or at EasyEv3 on Twitter, he sent me a meme of says, I cried 3 times in my life. When I was 7, I got hit by a bus. When little Sebastian died, and whenever Chris left Dear Mr. Fantasy. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to hurry. There's a lot. Luke Martin says, Crunch Berries. Will this change your mind? Going to miss Chris on the pod. I hope he's a guest in the future. Nerf Herder. I also want to wish him luck. Now who takes the title of worst voice in podcasting? Does he get to anoint someone? Luckily, he still has the worst voice in podcast, so the title is secure.
Yancy.
Our buddy Bryce Leesmeyer, he says, cross him off the list. Our buddy Barry Baker, Crunch Berries will never taste the same again. Jason Collette says, no, I do get it, though. It's a struggle for me to still do what I do. It will be a yearly review process moving forward, but best wishes to you with the refocus. Tony Healy says, it won't be the same. Life is full of twists, just like a river, and sometimes you have to let the river take you where you need to go. Very zen. Joel Jarina, he says, I hope other shows get together and have a party or a roast of you on the way out. You're definitely my favorite podcast host of all time. Bradley Newman, good luck in your new chapter in life. Sammy Reed, past guest, he says, great run on a great pod, McBee. It was fun to be a little part of it this season. Go crush in your future adventures. At Dirty Water Sports on Twitter, he says, come on, McBrien, just make your announcement already. We know you're starting the Dear Mr. Fantasy Crunch Berries podcast in September. Like a new spin-off, kind of thing. Christopher Austin says, I raise an ice-cold Molson to you, but I'm going to need you to send me one of those. Sorry to see you go.
Wait a minute. Molson. Molson? What is that, some sort of weird Japanese thing? Oh, hello, Molson.
Sounds like a Pokemon character.
I thought you were doing the best.
Wax on.
Holy crap. You're reading everything ever written on Facebook.
To be fair, these aren't just Facebook. Some of these are emails. Some of these are tweets. I did elicit for questions, but
I think wherever it was, I'd know what a Molson is.
Shut up, guys. You guys are all alcoholics. That's why you know.
Hey, guys, shut up, man.
Jesus.
Right. Mike Youngberg on Twitter. You guys all know Mike. He always tweets out really funny memes.
Never heard of him.
Take care of what you gotta. Take care of what you gotta do, McLobster. Be the change. We love you. Others should aspire to leave a legacy half as good as yours. Joshua Smith at Zipper Chef on Twitter. He says, still my favorite Canadian. Best of luck. Mr. Mayfield says, if I send you money, would you sign a bag of ketchup chips and send them back to me? Sad to hear you're stepping away. Also, the ITL Army loves you. I'm trying to skip over a couple of these because there are a lot. All right, here's another really good one. It's from Matt Sparkington. It says, thank you for being such a great alternative to the big fantasy baseball podcasts that are out there. You were always a constant, friendly, and most of all, informative voice in fantasy baseball. You always gave your co-hosts and contemporaries more credit than you ever gave yourself. You will be missed, and you're leaving the fantasy baseball industry in a better place than when you started. Thanks again, and I want to wish you all the luck in the world. Matt Modica, past guest, class act, and best of luck, and you will be missed. And lastly, very last one from Rhett Soderberg. He sent me this email. It says, Valentine's Day of 2015, I wrote a tweet about how fantasy baseball is my real Valentine. At that time, my following on Twitter consisted mainly of old high school friends. But out of nowhere, Chris McBrien favorited that tweet. And me being me, I did some investigating into who Chris McBrien actually was. What I found was incredible. Chris was the center of a fantasy baseball group that was unheard of to me unheard of to me at the time. I have been a devoted listener to DMF since that day and an occasional contributor to the Facebook group. But that isn't all of it. I started to begin listening to some of the podcasts of DMF's featured guests in this league and Friends with Fantasy Benefits most notably. My fantasy baseball world has been forever changed for the better just because Chris randomly favored one of my tweets a year and a half ago. I wish you all the best, Chris, and I thank you for all you have done and for all of your listeners over the years. Like I said, there were literally 200 or 300 pieces of feedback that I had to go through. There's a lot more.
We just heard them all.
I know. I didn't want to do a disservice to Chris. I know a lot of people wrote like some really, really good stuff, and I wanted to get it in. To all those who didn't make it, I'm really sorry. You guys can obviously reach out to Chris personally. But there you go.
Well, that's Yancy, I really appreciate you taking the time to put all that together and to share it with us here. I really do appreciate everybody that took the time to write in, that's for sure. I want to just take a quick minute and just say thanks to a lot of people that I've made. I made so many good friends in the industry. I can't list them all, but I mean just a couple names I throw out there like Dennis Esser and Paul Sporer, Jason Collette, Tim Heaney, Eno Saris, Tim McLeod, Mike Gianella, and of course Nando DeFino. And the reason I got into podcasting in the first place, like the doctor mentioned, was Nate Ravitz and Matthew Barry. That's for sure. We got a chance to meet those guys at the Podcast Awards. We've had so many great listeners over the years. I can't list them all, that's for sure, but there's been so many great listeners. Keith Renshaw, Joel Jarena, Greg Jewett. There's been Jason Rubin. There's Stephen Brunn. There's Jim Finch. Original David Price. Jason Ravanis. Bryce Leesemer. Kurt Kalin, Yancy already mentioned him. Jeremy Gibbs mentioned him. Casey Varner, Arbar Todd. There's so many guys. But guys...
Oh, don't forget the ladies, too. There's some ladies like Melissa Ackerman and Terry Shaler and those ladies over there. They listen.
Yes, they do. You're right. And Terry's so great. She sent me such a nice note the other day. But guys that are on the show today, really appreciate it. Welsh, Bogman, I said it off the top of the show, was been a fan of yours since the days when you started in Sports Porch. I can't say enough about you guys. Justin, probably the best interview I ever did. Doctor, thanks for everything. We got started together. Certainly do appreciate Jason. We've been together for years. Really appreciate having you on and bringing you in as a regular toward the end here. Joe, don't know what to say. Brought you on. The chemistry we had was palpable right from the start, and we definitely took things to a new level, and adding Yancy just really sort of took things to a different level. But before I wrap up for the final time, I just want to say a couple things. For the guys that are keeping the show going, like Jason, Joe, Dan, Yancy, I just want to impart a little bit of advice, if I may. You know, having done this show for the past 4.5 seasons, so you guys can take it for what it's worth. But I would like to say this. Please try and stay true to the spirit of the show. And by what I mean by that is the show has always been as inclusive as possible. So I'd ask you to just please do everything in your power just to keep that going. You know, involve the audience, listen to them, and most importantly, like genuinely accept and listen to feedback freely. If there's one thing that I've learned over the years, this show is not about us. It's about everyone else. So I'd say the best advice I can give is to listen to what people are saying and then adapt as necessary. And that goes for people in the industry as well as listeners. If someone disagrees with you, don't call them out or belittle them. Don't get defensive. People have opinions. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Everybody. And I think if you embrace that concept, you'll be the bigger man and you'll be the better show. That's my personal advice to you. And finally, parting word to the listeners of this show, the audience. I think like all of us in the fantasy baseball world, this podcast has been a labor of love for me. It's not like I did it to get rich or anything. It's the opposite. If anything, in fact, it's cost me money to keep this show going. Like Yancy mentioned at the top of the show, the sponsor of the podcast, Owner's Box, I did that for those guys as a favor. They're just a bunch of sharp guys putting together a really cool app, and they needed some exposure in the early going, so I did that for them. I did get paid for it, and those promos, like Yancy mentioned between the segments, I run those for people in the industry just to try and give them a hand, you know, and I don't charge them for anything for it. I just do it for free, just try and help them out. This show has definitely meant a lot, you know, to me, and for me, it was a lesson in how to do something the right way. It was a major, huge learning curve, and it took a lot of mistakes along the way, but in the end, it was all about trying to be inclusive and helpful to as many people as possible. What goes around comes around. And I've always tried to be the best person that I could be in this space, and I only hope that I leave the fantasy baseball community a little bit better than it was before I got here. For the last time, this is Chris McBrien saying thanks for listening to the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast, where we put the fan in fantasy baseball.
Craig It's out of here. It's on a foul like the mouth of these guys when they're spilling their beer all over studio gear.
Thank you for listening to the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast, sponsored by the Owner's Box Fantasy Sports app. The Dear Mr. Fantasy theme song was written and performed by recording artist Please and Thanks. You can join the conversation on Twitter at C. McBrien or at Joe Pisapia 17. Also, join our Facebook discussion group and be sure to visit our website at dmfantasybaseball.com. Please take a minute to leave a review for the podcast in iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.
No doubt. That's 3 strikes, I'm out. That's why, no lies, y'all. I'm calling you out.